start off our live stream on ASKSBDC. So Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you very much, Alan. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's Small Business Town Hall meeting. We're covering disaster relief loans for COVID and for fires, and we're also joined by attorneys from our colleagues at CaseForce. This is session number 65. Boy, we've been doing a lot of these. Today being October 7th, 2020. So we are Northern California SBDC. We are supported by the Small Business Administration as well as the state of California. And we provide no fee advising for California's small business community. And we on the team here today are part of the Finance Center. And we specialize in getting loans for small businesses. Prior to COVID, it was a lot of helping folks with the loans for acquiring or growing their business. Obviously now we've been focusing a bit more on getting the funds to help businesses survive during these difficult times. Scott Rogalski is our director who's not with us today, but I'm sharing our meeting today with Sunita Maharaj, who's our associate director. And of course, my name is Mike Ballstead. I've been able to join you a few times over the past couple of months. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And so our agenda, as many of you who join us regularly will be familiar with, we'll start out with a disclaimer. Then we are also joined by a couple of our colleagues at the SBA to cover COVID and fire EIDL parameters. Also, the required documents for PPP forgiveness. We'll have updates from the Small Business Administration. And then we'll be joined by our Case Attorney Coalition. Alan will cover some of our upcoming webinars, and then we'll be open for questions and answers. And I have seen that we are collecting a few in the queue as we speak. So our disclaimer is this: things are changing all the time, and any information presented today was correct when our presentation was put together. And I will say that we're updating this presentation before every one of these webinars with whatever is current at that time. EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, is still accepting loan applications for most businesses, including not-for-profits, 501c3s, 4s, and 6s. However, the EIDL Advance, the grant that was for up to $10,000, that program is closed and has completely exhausted its funds. But please do not hesitate to continue to apply for EIDL, as that program is still open. And PPP was closed as of August 8th, 2020. If you did apply and haven't received any approval on that program, there will be no new approvals going forward at this time. So going over the two programs that are currently available for economic injury disaster loans, besides the COVID relief loan that has been available for a number of months, now with the unfortunate serious fire season that we've had, we also have a loan available for those of you who have been impacted by the fires. And again, as I reiterate what Alan said, any of you in those counties who have faced the loss of your business or your home, we really hope that you and your families and your employees are all doing well. So as we look at the parameters, we look at the rates for the COVID loans. It's 3.75%, and this is a non-forgivable loan. For nonprofits, that rate is 2.75%. And for fires, the rate for for-profit businesses is a little lower at 3%, 2.75% for nonprofits. For both loans, it's a 30-year loan. For COVID, you have 11 months before a payment is due, whereas for the fire loan, there are 6 months before the first payment is due. Both loans, you do have interest accruing during that time. For collateral requirements and personal guarantee, they both have a collateral requirement for loans over $25,000 and personal guarantees on the COVID loans for anyone with over loans over $200,000. And they do require that on both loans for owners with over 20% stake in the business. Neither loan is forgivable. Each of these would be loans that do require repayment. What you're allowed to spend the money on with the COVID EIDL loan, you're able to cover all operating expenses, cost of goods sold, interest on debt payments, And if you did have a need to, and you weren't using it for, you weren't using PPP funds at the same time, you can use it for payroll. So for both loans, really, you're looking at this as a working capital loan to cover all those expenses you have to keep the doors open. Other than expansion, you can't use it to grow your business. You can't use it to pay off the principal balances of your loans, and you cannot use it to pay for your tax liens. And Sunita, I was wondering if you could help me out with this piece with the forgiveness documentation.
Sure. Sorry, I was answering some questions. On the forgiveness piece, this is where you're going to find the application. These are the hyperlinks to it. And this is all found currently on the Treasury website. It is the latest application and how to complete the application. These are two documents that you are going to need to be able to complete the application. These two documents are found at Treasury, at treasury.gov, but we have provided you with the links here. This presentation is also going to be provided to you in the chat area. I know a lot of people are talking about forgiveness. Should I apply now? I'll just go into that really briefly right now. Should I apply now? Should I wait? Is there legislation already regarding forgiveness of a certain loan amount? And if you are ready to apply for forgiveness, we say that, you know, if that's what you want to do, then we can definitely help you through that. One-on-one counseling is going to be the best way for you to go because everyone's going to have a little something different. Some people may not have a 941, they are doing it a different way. They have other questions. They may have one employee, they may have several employees. So it might be a little bit different for everybody. Give us a call so we can help you with that if you are ready to go ahead and start to apply for the forgiveness. If you want to hold off until there's legislation, you can also do that. But the interest does accrue since the date that you received it. There are questions also in regards to the advance. Some people are under the impression that the advance, if you receive the PPP first and then the advance later, that it would still not be deducted. It is still going to be deducted from your PPP forgiveness, the way the application reads right now. So that's a little bit about the PPP and what's required for documents. There is a list also on the application of the documents that you should keep and the documents that you need. Once we are also on the waiting game of seeing if what's going to be forgivable loan amounts, if that's going to come to fruition or not. So we are also in that little waiting game too, but we can also help you start it now and submit it to your lender. I know that I believe that Carrie or David will, I believe it's 60 days for the lender to be able to go through your documents and submit it to SBA Disaster. Then it takes SBA Disaster another 90 days. It can take them up to 90 days to go ahead and review all those documents and then give the lender the information of forgivability or not. So I know everyone's a little bit of waiting game right now because that hasn't happened yet, but it should be coming through, I think, probably within the next month or two. So that's it for me. And if you have any questions, please ask in the Q&A and I'll try to answer all the questions I can. Either I'll type it out or we'll go through it at the end. And if you have any specific questions for the attorneys, can you just put in the top attorney question or just attorney and then ask your questions? That would be great. Thank you.
And Sunita, this is Carrie, and I just want to confirm that yes, the lenders were starting with their forgiveness August 8th. So 60 days from there would be tomorrow. And then the SBA has 90 days after that to go through it. There's a lot of different people asking questions about, in general, you know, this baseline of complete forgiveness with no documentation. Nothing has been decided yet on that. So it's your decision as a small business owner if you want to go through the process with our SBDC Finance Center, get that assistance, put it together, or if you want to wait to see if some different legislation comes down on that. But you are correct. At this point, Sunita, we don't have any more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Carrie.
Carrie, this is David, also from the SBA. We are very fortunate to have the SBDC team that is doing such a great job of explaining and being experts on our SBA Economic Relief Program. But we also have other resources too. The SBDC is one of our biggest programs that we have that the SBA funds nationwide. But I just want to let you know about some of our other resources. For example, the Women's Business Center. They have a really good class coming up, your holiday promo plan, and that is a free class coming up on October 8th. So you can sign up for that. Also, we have a Veteran Business Outreach Center. They are starting their Boots to Business for veterans, and they're going to be having free webinar training on that too. One other resource we have is SCORE on SCORE national website, score.org. They're having a really good webinars, not only for people that are actually, there's a good one, women-owned startups in rural America, that's coming up, but they also have a lot of selection of classes in Spanish. So if there's clients, or if you are a business owner or entrepreneur that would like to see some webinars in Spanish, you can also go to the SCORE website. So take advantage of those additional resources that we have in addition to the great team at the SBDC. I'll put these links on our chat box. Thank you. Back to you, Sunita.
Thank you. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks. And thanks, Carrie and David. We appreciate your input and help today. And I wanted to go back to one thing that Sunita had mentioned about the advance and whether it would be deducted. And the reason that's the case is that if you would have gotten the advance prior to getting your PPP, they would have reduced the amount of the loan they would have given you as a result, because you already got some of that money that was forgivable. So likewise, it would be deducted from your forgiveness on the back end when they're considering, the loan that you may have gotten after the advance. Okay, and we have for SBA support, we have 800-659-2955 would be the disaster center contact, as well as you can reach out to disaster customer service at sba.gov. And if you had applied for a loan and were declined, you are able to ask for reconsideration. For instance, if they told you that some aspect of what you had included wasn't adequate, the reconsideration email is pdcrecons@sba.gov. And for servicing questions, if you already have a loan that's in force, it is El Paso DLSC@sba.gov or 800-487-6019. And so now for a disclaimer for our case force, we'll be bringing in the attorneys to help with any of your legal questions that you may have directly related to the pandemic. These office hours are intended to be a resource for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn information about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general non-pandemic related issues. And we do end up having a number of questions that do arise that aren't related directly to the pandemic. I would say the same for questions you may have that are finance related. Again, reach out to 833-ASK-SBDC, and we're willing and able to help you with any non-pandemic related questions as well. And today, we also want to introduce, we've got a small business resource guide at the link, and if you could, Alan, pop that into the chat for people to be able to click. That is a resource that's updated every week. We have folks from Berkeley Law School that update that on a regular basis. And we have today's attorneys are Mark Dillman, who's a guest. He's a staff attorney at United Policyholders. and we'll be giving him a few minutes to talk about their work over there and how they're helping answer questions with regard to insurance-related matters. And we have Kate Tyler from Morrison & Forster, who has a corporate practice, and Cooper Spinelli, in Morrison & Forster, who has an employment law practice. And with that, Alan, if you want to go ahead and cover our upcoming webinars.
Sure. It's a lighter load on upcoming webinars than we've had for a while. We're taking a bit of a back seat to a lot of the stuff that our centers are doing. But I was on Monday of last week, this week, we had the first part of our launching a cottage food business program, which was great, which was Marnie from our restaurant team was talking about how to get one of those off the ground, and was talking about it from what you need in terms of permits. Tomorrow, so next week on the Wednesday, he's going into what you need to do to actually get launched. So be some useful information on that. You can sign up for the second one and view a recording of the first one if you want, which is on the restaurant team's Facebook page. On Thursday, we've got Shane Barker, our e-commerce expert. It will be presenting his short, complete guide to how to grow your business online and generate sales. He's done something similar a couple of times for us. Always a great event. Lots of content, lots of information. Lots of people find it really useful. Always very highly rated. And then once again, this is a little bit out, but it's something certainly worth putting in your calendar. Holly Steele, who's part of our restaurant program, she's a world level trainer around hospitality. Worked with some of the world's biggest brands, is now working with we're very lucky to have her working with our restaurant program. She's going to be doing something on a program on adding hospitality to takeout. So if you're in a situation where you're doing where you previously had a very high customer contact level, so in a restaurant or something similar, and now you've moved to a takeout model, how do you pull that hospitality feeling that you've got that you may well be known for? And something you're very proud of, how do you pull that into the takeout space? So that'll be on Monday, the 3rd of November. It says 3 till 3 p.m. It should say 2 till 3 p.m. because I can't type. So I apologize for that. I'll get that amended and it'll be out for you all. But when you sign up online, if you go to SBDC events /network calendar, you'll see those ones. You'll also see the stuff that our 18 different centers are doing. Everything from basic startup stuff to finance stuff to e-commerce stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and because pretty much everything now is webinar, you can see anything from anywhere. Okay, that's me.
Thank you so much, Alan. Okay. And so our upcoming Wednesday webinars, next week we'll have disaster loan updates with a guest presenter, not yet announced. On the 21st, we'll again have our Case Force Attorney Coalition. We're going that to, again, having the attorneys every other week. And then on the 28th, again, we'll have disaster loan updates and a guest presenter. And with that, we'll go to questions.
And we're going to have Mark present from Case.
Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us from United Policyholders, and welcome, and we're glad to hear from you today.
Thank you very much. First, I want to say thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it. So as mentioned, my name is Mark Dillman, and I'm here from United Policyholders, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We act as a voice for policyholders, for consumers in the insurance space, and we primarily work in the property insurance space, and we have roadmap to preparedness programs that help folks and educate folks about preparedness in the insurance industry, insurance realm, and roadmap to recovery, guiding folks after a covered loss has occurred. So we are in the disaster area, but recently with COVID, we have started and launched a new initiative where we have basically started collecting and worked with a lot of our volunteer attorneys through our network to act in the courts and also be a resource to others for COVID-19 and property insurance resources. And all of this information in our library can be found at uphelp.org/COVID. And so I just wanted to give a couple minutes today and just kind of give an overview about, what you should do, in the meantime. We've seen kind of this changing landscape, this uncertain landscape since March. Folks have been submitting insurance claims on the property side, and there really is still shifting outcomes. We're not sure. There's no definitive answers here. So if you haven't already, request a full policy from your insurance carrier, and find out if you have coverage for business interruption. And that's basically what our initiative has focused on is COVID-19 business interruption. So if you don't have that policy, request a full policy, because without it, you don't know what you do have or what you don't have. So we recommend requesting that in writing, put it in writing, find out, get all endorsements that you can. Once you have that policy, the full policy, go into it and search first if you have business interruption coverage. Unfortunately for small businesses, it's split. A lot of policies do not actually contain business interruption or business income coverage. But again, without requesting that policy and actually looking yourself, you won't know. So if you can get a searchable PDF from your insurance carrier, from your broker, from your agent, and search terms like business interruption, business income, and first find out if you have that coverage. The next step after finding out if you do have that coverage is looking for virus exclusions. And unfortunately, there are quite a few policies with virus exclusions, but this does not mean that you do not have coverage and that it will be barred for your policy if you submit a claim for business interruption. That's kind of the changing legal landscape right now. So what we recommend doing, again, is have that searchable PDF and use search terms such as virus, pandemic, and contaminant, and look at the different search results that appear. Again, just because you have a virus, stated virus exclusion, contaminant exclusion, or a pollutant exclusion does not necessarily mean that there's not coverage. What we're seeing in the shifting landscape right now is different states are handling these business interruption claims slightly differently. So the first step absolutely is to get a copy of your policy and see what you have. A lot of these policies are, they're thick 100, 200, 300, 400 page documents. And there are a lot of attorneys that are doing free policy reviews. So we recommend, if you're uncomfortable looking at your own policy to see what you have, if you haven't done so already, reach out. There are free resources that are available to do this. So along with searching whether or not you actually have business income or business interruption insurance, whether or not you have a virus exclusion, you also look for other coverages. Look for extra expense insurance, look for civil authority coverage, and look for communicable disease extensions, which may grant a dollar amount specifically for these types of losses. After that, I just want to touch on a few first steps that you can be doing. Put your insurer on notice. There are, whether you think you have a claim, whether you don't think you have a claim, making sure your insurer is on notice is key and might be important down the road. I also want to emphasize compile information, collect government orders, collect accounting documents, get all of your insurance policies as mentioned, business forecasts, contracts in place, and any changes in expenses. Keep an ongoing claim file and document and diary everything that you're doing if you think that you may have a claim. Even if you don't think that you do have an insurance claim after looking at these policies, I would strongly suggest keeping this claim diary and collecting these resources because, again, it's an uncertain landscape right now, and we might not know what's coming down from the legislative perspective. There may be programs down the line, and you may need all of this documentation information to get paid through other than insurance. So those are the first starting steps, I'd say. Request your policy, do a search for business income, do a search for virus exclusion and other coverages, put your insurer on notice, and keep documentation of everything that's changing moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate that. I already have a question for you. So it says here, Allison is asking, Mark, what do we do next steps for insurance coverage with virus exclusion, and which you have already been denied a claim of business interruption with your carrier?
So what we're seeing right now, and one of the things that we're tracking in our COVID library at uphelp.org/COVID, are these complaints that have, so similar situation to you, there's been a claim filed, it's been denied because of a virus exclusion, and folks are submitting lawsuits and they're filing claims in the court. And we're seeing pushback in the early stages right now through motions to dismiss, and we're seeing a split in different courts and are interpreting different policy exclusions and different virus exclusions differently. So right now what we're doing is we're monitoring that landscape, and we're kind of keeping a tally of wins and losses, if you will, a scorecard of what virus exclusions are prevailing, which ones are failing, and how are the courts actually interpreting these virus exclusions. I know I mentioned that they're handling virus exclusions differently, and that's because there are multiple different types of virus exclusions. So I would say go to our website, keep track. We have a few resources that show how the courts are interpreting and how the courts are looking at these policies. Right now, I think there's about 14 dismissals with prejudice, and there are 7 motions that have been denied. So about 7 or 8 wins that have seen virus exclusion cases move forward in court, and about 18 losses, if you will. So I would say keep just monitoring what the courts are doing through our website. Keep logging on to these, and eventually I think we'll have a little bit more clarity, but we're not quite there yet.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. And Allison, you can find the website information in the chat. He did provide it to you there, or we provided it to you there. So thank you very much for the question, and thank you so much for going over all of that, Mark. Let's see here. We've got another question for you, Mark. Might we get SUS succinct list of they want a list of what all the keywords to look for?
Absolutely. Here, I can say them real quick here, and I'll type an answer. To look for the actual coverage itself, search terms like business interruption, and more common in small business policies, in BOPs, BOP policies, they're called business income instead of business interruption coverage. So search business income, business interruption, and then while searching for a virus exclusion, which there was a data call midsummer, about 83% of policies do have some form of virus exclusion. Search for virus, pathogen, and contaminant are the suggested words that you're going to want to look for.
Mark, we've got a question from Rhonda that may fall under your property casualty side. Is soot inside your home on the walls covered under insurance?
It should be. The classic answer is always, it depends, what do you have coverage for? But traditionally, soot inside your home on the walls would be covered under insurance. Again, depends on your actual policy, but normally under normal all risk policy, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. And then I've got a question for, I guess it might be Kate, and I'm not sure that we'll be able to answer this one because a lot of it's real estate related, but if either of the attorneys on the call can give some input, we'd appreciate it. It says, number 1, 3 doctors have put notes together now with their orders, no one in or out. As I recall, this was someone who asked questions earlier. They have a business, their child is at risk, so they're not able to go in or out of the house. So they're trying to decide how to handle their business. So they may have to sell. One of the questions they have is, they've got a 3-year lease on the building. 2 years will remain as of November 1. The building is sold with existing lease. 0 changes or info to existing on lease. So I guess that what they're looking for is if they have to close their business because of the health risk for their child, do they have any outs on that lease, being that the building has sold to a new owner?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
Okay, thanks, Kate. So Misty, what we'll have to do is we'll put this out to question, and if Ellen, if you could capture her contact info, if it exists, we'll go ahead and try to get her follow-up answer.
We'll have that contact info in the Q&A from when you logged in. So we have
Excellent. Wonderful. We'll work to get that for you, Misty. And then we have another question here from Martin. Any word yet on a new state of California loan program? Scott said he thought that it would be announced this week. We haven't heard anything yet on a launch date, but we will be having a lot of outreach when that information comes available and it's formalized.
Yeah, they're still working on it. It's called California Rebuilding Fund, and those are the keywords that you're looking for. I believe they're trying to get it out this week, but I think they're going to go a little bit slower just to make sure they have all their T's crossed and I's dotted.
So I've been in on the working group on that, and there's a lot of great people working on it. It'll be a really good program, but they are being very they're being very intentional and making sure that it comes off well and executed well. Let's see, do you have any recommendations on finding M&A resources or investment groups to assist with funding? Allison, I would suggest contacting A33 ASKSBDC and feel free to let them know that you're looking for equity funding solutions. You talk about M&A. If this is regard to exit planning, that's actually my role with Northern California SBDC, is I do help with exit planning. So if you wanted, you could certainly ask them to connect you with me, and I'd be glad to give you any help that I can. Okay, so we have, at this point, we've answered all outstanding questions. And if there's anybody who has anything that they'd like that on the panel that has any other information that they'd like to talk about, any new developments or anything that you think might be helpful to the group, we'd love to open up for that while we're waiting for more questions.
Hi, Mike. This is Carrie over at the SBA, and I just wanted to remind everyone that in addition to the COVID loan application at SBA.gov, for the fires that have been around us here in California, there's a separate application on the website at SBA.gov. So please, if you're looking for that assistance with the fires, you don't want to use the COVID application. The other comment I wanted to make is that we have had millions of small businesses apply for the COVID disaster loans, and our agency has processed more loans in this year for disaster than we did since 1956 when the agency started. So yeah, it's a lot. So please be patient with us as you call that 800 number or you send an email. There's just quite a few people, unfortunately, in this process right now. In regard to the reconsideration, so keep in mind, we've had 5 million loans that have been processed. I'm sure some of those are going through that reconsideration process. We don't have a timeline for you, but considering the magnitude, again, it's going to take time, and our people are working as fast as they can. We've put on additional temps to help cover that requirement, and we're working through it as best we can. So please do be patient with us and know that we are committed to working towards getting all of those requests addressed. Thank
you very much,
Mike.
Carrie. Carrie, I do have a question for you with regard to the fire loans. Is there a place that people can go to find out which counties are covered under this loan?
Yes, we shared that information with the SBDC network. So they would have those bits of information, as well as they're on the website for SBA. I do know that we have 14 counties here in California that have fire declarations, and I can read those to you, which are Nevada, Plumas, Yuba, also Siskiyou, down south, Los Angeles, Mendocino, San Bernardino, San Diego, and the other counties are Fresno, Madera, and I think we have now Butte again. But the best information that's going to be most current would be on our SBA.gov website. And I can send those declarations out as well. And Alan or Sanuda, if you can share them for me here. I'm having a little bit of computer technical glitches, but let me see if I can get that for you.
So I've posted in chat the ones you sent to us last week. So the amended English, Spanish, and the flyer. So they're in chat.
Perfect, Alan.
Grab them.
Thank you.
That's what I do.
Very well.
Excellent. I see a question here from Jesse with regard to a PPP loan, stating, I was funded in May and using the 24-week period. My bank is saying that a payment is due in December unless I apply for forgiveness. I thought any payments are not due until next week. Jesse, I'm presuming you mean next year. Could you clarify PPP loan payment timing? So when you got your original loan in May, you would have had an 8-week, was the original loan period that was available, and coming in June, you had the option. And that may be why the bank is presuming, because you had originally had the 8 weeks, that they may be telling you that. So if you could reach out to 833-ASKSBDC.com, and one of our advisors can actually go through your paperwork with you and determine what the next steps should be for you. Excellent. So if anybody has any other questions. We're currently at just about a quarter after, and I know we've got another 15 minutes on the call, so we'll keep it open a little bit and wait for some additional questions. All right, we see one here. Okay, and so this one would be for Mark. It says, Neil is asking, where do I look to follow along to see if my carrier has been overturned on virus exclusion for my business interruption?
So what's happening right now is that a lot of these cases are being filed. So insurers like yourself may have had a claim denied potentially, and a lot of these folks, there was kind of a fury of lawsuits, in March, April, and it's kind of been a bell curve of lawsuits. And right now we're starting to see the initial orders coming down from the court, and there's just a handful right now. The insurers are picking and choosing. And so in our library, we do have a lot of these orders as they come down. We do have these orders posted, and they're not necessarily in layman's terms, but as more come out, what we're going to do is kind of create a checklist. I know there is a link within our COVID library. It's COVID coverage litigation tracker, does a good job. It's a couple of folks from Penn Law, and it's kind of keeping tabs on how the courts are coming out in interpreting the motions to dismiss and how they're treating some of the virus exclusions. So the short answer, again, I'm on the soapbox here, but the short answer is go into our library, look under lawsuits and search orders, and you'll see some of the orders and some of what the courts are saying, and also go check out the coverage litigation tracker from Penn Law that we have posted in our library.
Thank you very much, Mark. Questions. Okay, it says, do contractors count towards PPP forgiveness FTE count if they were contracted during the covered period? Okay, what I'm presuming is you're an independent contractor. If you're the contractor, you're effectively self-employed, and any PPP you applied for yourself, you would, the best practice would be to have an account that you are paying yourself from, and that you would be tracking that payment to yourself. And you would be, you know, whatever the max, whatever you're taking, it'd be 8 weeks or 24 weeks, depending on the amount, and if you were above the maximum. So if you were, you know, if you were over 15,000 and change, you would choose the 24-week period, so that you'd be under that limit. Now, if you're talking about paying contractors, if you're an employer and you happen to have independent contractors, and you're asking if that counts toward your FTE, the answer to that would be no, because they are not employees, they are contractors. Hopefully that helps. And do we have any other questions? I'll just let you know, Jesse, yes, you did miss, I guess, the answer that we gave. I'm actually typing a response to you as we speak. We are currently at, and we're still at 17 after. So if we don't get any more questions, we'll let everybody recapture a few minutes of their time this morning and see. Okay, I see a question from Mary. It says, in the beginning of selling our business, we have to contact the shopping center owner, who is a large company. What are the difficulties and hurdles we will have to deal with? Our lease is up in 2023 with a 5-year option. Will we be on the lease with the new owner? Kate, would you have any insight into that?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not really able to opine on that question.
No worries. Okay, Mary, we will collect this question for you, and we will reach out to some of the other folks on the case force team that, you know, are more focused on the real estate aspect of law, and get an answer back to you. And Sunita, if another question happens to come up in the next minute or so, if you wouldn't mind taking it, I'm typing a response to Jesse here.
Sure. Mary wants to thank the legal team for answering questions today.
Of course, thank you for being here.
We appreciate everyone attending these webinars for the 65 weeks that we've been here. We see some of the same people on here, and we appreciate you coming back time and time again. We hope that we've been able to assist you and all new attendees as well, and hope that you continue with us throughout the month.
So Nita, I'm gonna point out that you just said 65 weeks, which is clearly what it feels like.
Oh,
it is only 65 sessions. We did start 3 times a week, but you know, I don't know about you, but when I first started these, I didn't have any grey hairs, and
not hair.
Yeah, Mike had a full head of hair when we first started, so you know.
Yeah, 65 sessions. I just got ahead of myself there.
Uh-huh.
Neil's asking, can you send us a link to follow along for the virus exclusion?
I think we had that in the chat, didn't we? Let me see if I can find
Yes.
it. Is that
Yes.
the COVID loss recovery initiative? Okay, I'll pop that back in the chat.
Yeah. From Mark.
And I just want to reiterate, I apologize, I was rambling a little bit. The link hosts information about what the courts are doing to interpret individual policies. So there's not necessarily going to be a certain document that says this virus exclusion is null, it does not apply. But there will be resources in the library that walk through what's going on. And as soon as something a little bit more firm happens, and as soon as there's a little bit more collective efforts from the courts, we'll be putting out more publications that make that a little bit more clear. So you might not find exactly the answer you're looking for right now, but there are resources that kind of guide that question, and there will be more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Maria also wants to thank everyone. You guys are all awesome. Thank you for what you do for small businesses. Thank you, Maria, for attending. It is our pleasure to be here.
Here with Andy is asking, an employer was approved for PPP on 5/19 with 4 FTEs in 2019. They maintained 2 of those FTEs and have been able to spend 100% of their funds on those 2 employees and other forgivable expenses. Do they need to hire back 2 more people to get back to the 4 FTE count? Andy, what I would say to that is there are a couple of questions, and you might again call 833 Ask SBDC and get connected with one of us. But a couple of things to consider is you have, first is the piece of what percentage of your funds did you spend on payroll and other qualified expenses. That would be at least 60% towards payroll and related expenses, which are indicating that you did spend 100%. So that part's fine. Then the other has to do with rate of pay and not having a rate of pay reduction of more than 25%. And the other is not having a reduction in full-time equivalents of more than 25%. So if you have 2, that would put you at 50%, which would be below that. So, one caveat would be that yes, you could potentially have to hire back 1 or more people to meet that. But there are also some exceptions that were created in June with the PPP Flexibility Act. And that has to do with if you had an employee who wasn't willing to come back because of COVID, they weren't willing to come back to work, then those folks, as long as it was documented, would be excluded from your forgiveness equation. So to get into more detail on your specific case, please give us a call and we'd be glad to help you walk through that. Excellent, some very good questions today, and I was glad to have Mark here too, because there are a lot of these insurance questions coming up. Because a lot of, it's uncharted waters for a lot of people, and we haven't had something like this. So I'm really grateful for you being able to be here today with us. Thanks, Mark.
No, very much so. Appreciate being on.
Excellent. So any last minute questions, anybody that we can get to while we're still here? We're at about 25 after. Let's see what's coming up in the chat.
Hi, Mike. I just sent that little tidbit of information to let everyone know if they go to our district website, we have a calendar with all of our resource partner classes on it. And I wanted to let you know that there is going to be an event on October 15th where you can learn a little bit more about government contracting. So that'll be we call it GCAN, Government Contracting and Networking event. It's a great opportunity if you're a small business and you're thinking about contracting with the government. You will learn directly from an agency what they look for and what you need to be prepared for when you look at that part of government contracting. We also have regular contracting classes through our Procurement Technical Assistance Center. If your business is in a point of wanting some growth or looking for opportunities, that might be a way for you to do that. I know one of our first questions was about, are we still doing loans for growth and expansion? And absolutely. Lenders are doing a good job for us here in the Sacramento region, taking care of small business lending. So I just wanted to kind of point that out to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. And it is really encouraging to see that. I mean, as much as you know, we're experiencing, you know, there's no doubt that so many businesses are experiencing very challenging times. It's been interesting to also see quite a bit of lender activity out there on new loans. So I'm encouraged by that. Excellent. So any other questions? That one burning thing you've wanted to know and haven't had the guts to ask? We've got a few more minutes. All right, wonderful. Well, with that, I think we'll go ahead and then close. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And if you have another question that comes up between sessions, please feel free to call 833-ASK-SBDC to get connected with one of our many advisors to be able to give you any assistance that we can, as well as our partners with CASE. And you know, go ahead and take a look in the chat, and it shows the where you can find the online resources available to you by county. And with that, we thank you for joining us for session 65, and we hope all of you have a great week.
See you next week, folks.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Keep
Thanks
safe,
everybody
guys.
for helping today.